Today's guest is Gabrielle Sease. She is the founder of Spatial Research LLC, which specializes in advanced research, consulting, and technology services related to AI, Metaverse, scientific innovation, and internet technologies, which I am very interested to hear about. So, Gabrielle, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
So, for those who have not ever met you or had a chance to talk with you, just rewind the clock a little and talk about who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
Yeah, thank you. I'm born and raised in the Susquehanna Valley and, my parents as well in Pennsylvania. And that cultivated kind of my whimsical nature. I love being outdoors and I think that fostered a dream like imaginative mind for me. And I was always um, just always thinking of like real world things and just always asking why as a child. And even like from kindergarten, that was always something, I always wanted to know the finer details of things. And that led to me obviously studying psychology. I studied at Mount St. Mary's University in Maryland, and it's a private Catholic university. I myself am Christian, so that was super important going into college. And, I could have picked private and Penn State and Pitt, and there's so many, those are huge influences in Pennsylvania. And they're great schools. But my college really allowed me to focus and, think about life and about people, and it's a liberal arts school. So, just having those influences behind my studies really allowed me to, really think about the mind and think about psychology and think about where I want to go with that. It's a very foundational study of the human psyche, and it's absolutely beautiful. So I love my time there. I studied abroad in Ireland, and this was during COVID, and
Oh, wow.
it was crazy. I finished college in 3.5 years, and then it was 2021, so coming out of the pandemic and traveling abroad for the first time ever, it was very, very. I mean, I look back at that time of my life and it went by so fast and just so much info. It was, I would never, I would relive it again and again if I could, because it was just such a beautiful experience. Um, and I learned so much. I would encourage anyone to study abroad. And it was my first time going on a plane, and, I just went and had a time. So, yeah, but that puts us at 2021. The pandemic's it's still a thing. Remote jobs. I just knew that I had to get in the market and learn. And, learning is a foundation of myself. I learn through everything, through a stranger I meet at the coffee shop to now to, that next course or that next language I can take. I never stop learning. I don't want to stop learning. So that propelled me, I was applying for any job I could. I was actually, if any of my professors see this, I'm sorry. In my senior classes, I was actually applying for jobs like in my last classes in my last semester. Cause I was ready. I was ready to be in that workforce. And I graduated December 21. And then I started working for Sales Intel, no, Plate IQ. They're an accounts receivable automation platform. And I started in sales, and, my parents are a lot of my inspiration of who I am and what I do. And my dad, both of them were in sales, but on the different tangent. My dad's in car sales. My mom was in business development sales for banking. So I always saw them converse, like they made their work and what they did in their life, they made it a livelihood, and, we would be out to dinner sometimes growing up, and they were just making connection. It was just so smooth, though. It wasn't how you would think um it were to be. They just made connections with humans, and then that transferred in their work, and they made great success out of that. So that was my inspiration on going into sales right out of school, and I learned so much. I mean, learning how to talk to C-suite executives and terminology and software terminology and um, a corporate business actually even. Um, and then I actually followed my manager to a different company, sales intel research, where that's still software sales. So I'm still in that same vicinity and learning about that world, which, is hand in hand with information technology. Um, so you know, that was about 2 years of my life. And in that time, I just absorbed everything like a sponge, the markets and business and, how to book the demo and high volume sales and high volume calls and, hitting quotas and that high and low of strategizing, and building a foundation of a business because, I'm an employee of that. I'm a pillar of, the company's success in year one, Q2, Q3, in the whole sales cycle. So that led me to then say, okay, I always had an interest in law. I did an internship in college and in the legal field. So that was always in the back of my mind. And, I finally thought that I had enough expertise and, background to say, okay, let's just go for the paralegal role, the legal assistant role. And then I landed that. And that kind of puts us where we are now and starting my 2 years later, now 2025 from 2021. Yeah.
So what was the kind of rationale? What caused, I mean, there's usually some reason you start a business, right? So what was your reason? What brought it to the forefront and made you go, I want to spend some time, effort, money to do this sort of thing?
Yeah. And I always said I want to be a researcher. And even like I thought I wanted to be a psychology researcher. And in a way I am. I researched that for my bachelor's degree and my undergrad degree. I just I it's just and then I was like, okay, I want to be a legal researcher. And in a way I am, and I still am for my clients and what I do and my everyday. But it really took and then I was like, I have my clients now, and I was speaking with one of them, and he was like, I need help with this, I need help with this, I need help with this. He's like, why? I just need someone to help me research this stuff for my business. He owns a medical practice. And you know I was like, hold on. And then it literally happened in a matter of, one night. It just all everything came together, and I was like, I can do this. I was I've had internships, research internships with the Department of State in college. So my research focus was always there. I just had to kind of put it together myself because research institutes are I think they're very, very niche. There's big research institutes, NATO, there's so many big, Cato, there's very huge. And in a way, every business is its own research institute. Um, and I think I was just, I had a friend who needed help, and I was able to help, and here we are.
I love it. I love it. Because, I mean, that is, like you said, a need for somebody who has their own business, maybe doesn't have the staff to do the research. So they need, but they don't need the big powerhouse. It's going to cost me a lot of money. I'm looking for somebody who can, meet me in the middle someplace, or,
Yeah.
and work with me on what that might look like, and in a more personal way. I mean, sure, I agree with you. There's lots of companies in that space, but they are expensive. They are
Yeah.
so Gartner is another big one, right? Expensive. So that's interesting. I like that idea where you can uh, quickly, I love that, quickly stand up a business to meet a need, an emerging need that you learned about. And then now you'll have this as an opportunity to use when the right customers come along.
Yes, exactly.
Wow. So I'm gonna ask a weird question. So you're doing the paralegal thing. I know that's very much like research. Is that something that would translate into law later?
It's funny because and that, that goes into one of the reasons why I started my business too. I really love the research side of being a paralegal. That's honestly why I've taken the LSAT. I did fine. I've applied, like, I never, I maybe one day, we'll see, but I think there's a lot, even in the lawyers I know and I work with now, and there's nothing against being a lawyer. It is a great, 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 if you to do that it takes a certain type of person. And, me, I'm that person that likes to be in the back room and, literally researching. Like it's what I do. And I'm not I'm not afraid to say that. And I think that goes with saying that's another reason why everyone always asks me that question. They're like, okay, well, is it law school? Is it this? Is it that? And I say maybe. Um, but I do, whether it's being a paralegal, for as long as I can, and then, gaining more clients in my own business, and being able to cultivate a company and build a company that's a holistic research focused environment, and being able to sell that, it goes in full circle, I think. And it's a passion of mine. So we'll see.
No, I like it. And it doesn't have to, right? It doesn't have to end. Just because you do something doesn't have to end in, say, being a lawyer. I like the way you've expressed it, and I can definitely see where your passion lies. So,
Mm.
research it is, and it brings you a lot of joy, and you should capitalize on that. So, um, so Gabrielle, when you're looking at your experience, getting your career started, and figuring things out, what's something that you look at and go, man, I wish it wasn't that way. It's a stumbling block of sorts, or it's not as efficient as it could be. So and I'll caveat it to say you and I may not have a way to make it more efficient today, but hopefully
Mhm.
somebody hears this and goes, "Oh, I have an idea and can do something." What's something when you look back that you go, "Yeah, please, please, somebody fix that, change it."
Ooh, this is a loaded question, and that's, that might be my mind of where, I'm a huge overthinker, but in a good way. Um, my innate response is just, I think politics. It's politics are there. I hate to be that person, but whatever side you may be, it really, you know there's just a lot. It's gotten, you know, and I think even looking back, it's just distracting the way that, everything is portrayed. Everything. I mean everything. There's a lot about humanity that is not focused on. There's just so much good that isn't addressed, that people need to see. um, and it can harbor goals and passions, and it can really, um, disrupt people mentally. So I think that's one of my things, just more external factors being more positive.
I can completely see where you're coming from. I mean, I live outside of Washington, D.C. It's hyper political, hyper political, and as you said, in the last easily in the last couple administrations, even more than that, the
Mm.
environment has become obviously a 50-50 perspective on the country that are, very differently focused. And when you're trying to get a career started, that's distracting. I absolutely would agree. It's distracting, right? And it's distracting just trying to do work if you're in a work
Yes.
area. So no, totally agree with you that we sometimes over focus on that rather than on the net positive we can all contribute together for whatever it is we're currently working on. We don't need to bring we don't need to talk politics.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, more of that would be great, and I think more could be accomplished when we're working together rather than irritated with one another.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Gabrielle, what's coming up for you? What's your plans? What do you have that you're trying to get accomplished?
Yeah, I'm working and I've had a great friend for a while, and it started as a I was volunteering for him, and it his company is Intellect Map. And it's a privatized AI space. He's a very pioneered individual. He's written code for Microsoft, and just very amazing individual who's Ronan Sorensen, and we're hoping to have people and businesses in the intellect map space. So that's where it's going, and we have bids on OpenSea that are auctionable now. Um, and that's launching. So, with AI and like I said, I've been working with him since 2019. So it has been a long time in the making of is now the right time? Is now the right time? Is because in 2019, I don't even I really can't even think LinkedIn had anything related to AI or just of the matter. Um, and if it did, it was very, not it was I Meta was coming out, and it this is a very different metaverse where obviously it's privatized, but the property is actually geolocated to coordinates. So it's a different um, way of seeing the metaverse. And I think businesses that are in very um, data compromising environments, where the data can be compromised, and that, thinking about cybersecurity is a number one, number two thing. Um, they don't want to move into meta. They don't want to move into spaces that are decentralized. For example, they want spaces that they have control over, and so we see Gain, and we're launching that, and really, I'm always looking for the next thing, and being creative myself. So I have some projects related to I have some personal projects, so I'm hoping to get those finished related to economic theory and all of that. So yeah.
All right. Well, Gabrielle, I'm very excited for you. You've got a lot of energy, and I cannot wait to see where that takes you and the things that you create that just make the world better. So, thank you so much for coming on my podcast today. I'm just looking forward to seeing that.
Thank you very much, Jeremy.